Hey everybody, I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about how things are looking in the Xbox world. It's been a couple months now since Asha Sharma took over, and you know what? I feel like, you know, hey, I'll own it. I may have been wrong about her. At the time, it seemed like she was coming over from AI. Her responses seemed very canned, very AI generated, and it just kind of gave off a very icky kind of corporate vibe. Um, Especially with the way how sudden everything was, where all of a sudden Phil was retiring, Sarah Bond was out. This whole thing seemed very chaotic and abrupt. But in that time since then, it would seem as though she is making all the right moves. Starting off with this price cut to Game Pass, dropping it from $29.99 down to $22.99. That's a huge step forward and a huge olive branch out to, people who've been invested in the Xbox and Game Pass ecosystem now for years. She's saying all the right things right now and has started to back these up with actual action. Like I said, we're already seeing a price cut to Game Pass. She's being very upfront about things. You know, the chip shortage due to, everything being gobbled up by AI. She's being very upfront that may delay the Project Helix as well as potentially drive some of that cost up. And that's very refreshing to see somebody actually out here being just very transparent and upfront. We've seen some of the stuff from, some of these letters that have gone out and some of these all hands meetings, really being focused on Xbox as a brand, doing away with the whole this is an Xbox thing. Which, while I understood what they were talking about with that, did rub a lot of the fan base the wrong way. So, again, more action kind of backing up the things that she's saying. And so far, so good. And then the idea that they're, kind of re-upping the whole backwards compatibility thing. And that at any point we could start seeing new backwards compatibility games as we near the anniversary date for Xbox. And, that was something that, they had mentioned. And, we've yet to see the full action of that. But it is something that they, pretty well laid out what they're going to do. And, obviously the proof will be in the pudding, but, this is all shaping up to really good, smart moves to shore up a fan base that was feeling very sketched out by what Xbox was doing and not feeling like, this was going to be going on much longer. It definitely was starting to give the last days of the Dreamcast vibes. And they seem to be turning this around. Now, there's been some wishy-washy comments on that open architecture for Project Helix lately. Kind of maybe stepping back a little bit on the language there, talking about how open means more just kind of open for players to build their own experiences and things like that. And, that's the one concern that I have, because I do like the promise of what originally this was looking like, which was this Xbox marketplace. But you could also pull up Steam, you could pull up your Epic Game Store, Good Old Games, all these different marketplaces, Battle.net. So I hope we're not doing away with that, because I do like the idea of that. I do think that that is a very forward-thinking move, for a console to be able to do that. It kills a lot of kind of fan wants that have been, kind of going on. And, like for me, one of the things you always hear me talk about is wishing World of Warcraft was on console. And being able to have that kind of hybrid PC console system that, the kind of promise of what Helix was going to be, basically solves that issue without having to go and make a console dedicated version. So I do hope they aren't walking away from that, but it's kind of hard telling because the language, like I said, is fairly vague. You can take that as being more of a confirmation that they're looking at doing that, because it'd be up to you to kind of customize, like, okay, do I want Steam on here? Do I not want it on here? Do I want good old games on here? Do I not want good old games on here? So you can kind of take it one way or the other. You can also take it as walking it back and saying, well, we mean, open to customize, UI and this and that and da 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 da. You want the blades back, here, have the blades, that kind of stuff. So it's a very kind of corporate-y, vague kind of answer. And so again, we're still a ways off from Project Helix actually being launched. I know originally they talked about next year, but short of the AI bubble completely popping, which don't threaten me with a good time, but short of that happening, I don't see necessarily that happening anytime soon. But as of now, I would say, given the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, I would say that Asha has, earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt right now. And she's, really moving in impressive ways and making all the right moves and saying all the right things. Now, we still got a long way to go to see if all of that bears out. But you know what? I think for the first time in a while, I feel like Xbox is in good hands, and we'll see what the future holds. Let me know what you think of the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.